President-elect Donald Trump was sentenced today in New York City, months after a New York jury found him guilty of 34 felony counts falsifying business documents to cover up an extramarital affair. But Judge Juan Merchan granted the president-elect what's called an unconditional discharge, a sentence that affirms he is a convicted felon but faces no further penalties, fines, or any time in jail. Our William Brangham was in court in New York this morning and joins us now. So, William, tell us a little bit more about this unconditional discharge. How did Judge Juan Merchan explain his rationale for what some are calling a lenient sentence?
I mean, on one hand, this wasn't a surprise. The judge had telegraphed this in a memo earlier. But yes, this is a relatively rare situation to have a defendant convicted of 34 felony convictions and face no jail time, no penalties, no fines, no probation. Merchan, in describing today, said that on one hand, this was a trial that was very ordinary. It unfolded in an ordinary way. Jury was selected.
Hello and welcome, guys. Dr. John is here. So this happening right now, Judge Merchan sentenced Trump to an unconditional discharge. No jail, fine, or probation, but permanently branded him a felon, cementing the first criminal conviction of a U.S. president. Trump now holds the historic distinction of taking the oath of office as a convicted felon, a status that can never be erased. The prosecutors in this case were absolutely enraged by what happened. They stood up in court and accused Trump of engaging in a direct attack on the rule of law. They said Trump was trying to undermine the legitimacy of the legal system. They pointed to his conduct throughout the trial, the attacks on the judge, the attacks on witnesses, the attacks on the district attorney, all of it. They argued that this conduct warranted serious punishment, and Merchan agreed with them. But Merchan said he couldn't jail a president-elect. The judge said the protections afforded to the office of the president created a legal mandate that he had to follow.
The lawyers gave their arguments, witnesses were heard, a verdict was reached. But he said, because of the defendant, this was an extraordinary trial, and sentencing him would be the same. Merchan said that if Donald Trump had been a regular citizen, a regular defendant, that he would have likely have faced much harsher punishment for those crimes. But because Donald Trump is about to become president of the United States again, that comes with enormous protections, the judge said. Those are granted by the Constitution, many other courts, and most recently interpreted again by the Supreme Court last year. So Merchan argued this was the only course he could really take, but he did say those protections given to the president do not excuse the underlying crime. Let's hear a little bit of what he said today.
To be clear, the protections afforded the office of the president are not a mitigating factor. They do not reduce the seriousness of the crime or justify its commission in any way. The protections are, however, a legal mandate, which pursuant to the rule of law, this court must respect and follow.
The only lawful sentence he could impose was an unconditional discharge. So Trump got to be a felon without going to prison. Trump got branded a criminal without facing jail time. Trump got the worst of both worlds. And that's the thing about this moment. It's not about Trump dodging prison. It's about Trump becoming officially, legally, permanently a felon. It's about Trump's name being attached to 34 felony counts forever. It's about Trump going down in history as the first convicted felon president. Merchan made sure everyone understood that Trump was guilty. He made sure everyone understood that Trump's conduct was criminal. He made sure everyone understood that prosecutors were right about the rule of law being under attack. But Merchan couldn't jail a president. Merchan couldn't send an incoming president to prison. Merchan had to defer the true reckoning.
It's an interesting clarification there. And William, we should note that Mr. Trump wasn't in the courtroom today. The judge had given him the option of dialing in remotely, but he was allowed to speak and on the record. So what did he say?
That's right. Donald Trump connected to the courtroom via video link from Mar-a-Lago, sitting next to his lawyer. And Trump said what he has always said about this case, that this was a political witch hunt. It was a completely rigged case against him. He said he is completely innocent of the charges, which he argues are completely bogus. He denies he ever had a relationship with Stormy Daniels. He again falsely blamed collusion between these local prosecutors and the Department of Justice. He said notably that the voters had been the ultimate jury nationwide, and that they had looked at this case and all the other cases against him, and they said they vindicated him. Here's a little bit of what he had to say.
It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work.
But William, even facing no penalties, no jail time, no fines, this isn't necessarily a day that Mr. Trump wanted to see happen or thought should happen. Isn't that right?
And that's what we're breaking down today. What Merchan's sentencing actually means, why prosecutors were so furious, what Trump's felon status means for his presidency, and what comes next when Trump leaves office and loses his presidential protections. Let's understand what actually happened during that video hearing. Trump wasn't even there in person. He appeared remotely. Judge Juan Merchan sentenced Trump to an unconditional discharge. That means no jail time. That means no fine. That means no probation. That means absolutely nothing in terms of direct punishment. But Trump was convicted on 34 felony counts, all 34. Trump was found guilty by a Manhattan jury of falsifying business records. Each of those counts carries up to 4 years in prison, 4 years per count.
That's exactly right. He fought this in every legal avenue that he could, as is his right. He appealed it to this judge. He appealed it to an appeals court in New York. He even appealed it this week to the U.S. Supreme Court, which rejected it last night in a 5-4 vote. There was also this very unusual phone call that Donald Trump had with Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito this week. Ostensibly, this was a call about a job referral for a man who is, I guess, being considered for a job in the Trump administration. But many government ethics experts say that to have a sitting Supreme Court justice on the phone with the president-elect on the very same week that he is appealing to them to delay sentencing certainly raises eyebrows. Again, Alito claims that they did not talk about this whatsoever. It had not even been filed at that point when Trump had this conversation. So yes, Trump did not want today to come because until today actually happened, Trump was not legally considered a, quote,
That's a potential 136 years in prison total, but there's no mandatory minimum. And similar New York Class E felonies often result in probation or fines, and Merchan chose the unconditional discharge. But Merchan made clear in his reasoning that he understood the severity of what was happening. Merchan said that the protections afforded to the office of the president apply only to that office, not to the occupant of the office. But those protections are a legal mandate that he must respect and follow. So Merchan was saying this: I understand Trump is guilty. I understand Trump committed crimes. I understand Trump deserves serious punishment, but I cannot jail a president-elect. So the only lawful sentence is an unconditional discharge. The conviction stands, the felony record stands, but Trump goes free. And prosecutors were absolutely furious. They stood up in court and said Trump engaged in a direct attack on the rule of law. They said Trump tried to undermine the legitimacy of the legal system. They pointed to Trump's conduct throughout the trial, the attacks on Merchan, the attacks on witnesses, the attacks on the DA, all of it. They said that conduct warranted serious punishment, and Merchan agreed. Merchan acknowledged that prosecutors were right. Merchan acknowledged that Trump's conduct was serious. Merchan acknowledged that this was an unprecedented situation with an unprecedented defendant. But Merchan couldn't ignore the law. Merchan couldn't ignore the legal mandate to respect the protections of the office. So Merchan handed down the unconditional discharge. And that's the dagger. That's the thing that destroys Trump's narrative. Trump wanted to claim victory. Trump wanted to say the case was a witch hunt. Trump wanted to say he was vindicated. But instead, Merchan branded him a felon, and that matters. That matters forever. Trump is now a convicted felon. Trump has 34 felony convictions on his record. Trump will go down in history as the first president with a felony conviction. No one can change that. No one can undo that. No one can erase that from Trump's record. And the other cases are still out there. The classified documents case, the January 6th case, the Georgia election case. All of those cases are still moving. All of those cases could result in more convictions. All of those cases could result in prison time once Trump loses his presidential immunity protections. And now Trump has a felony conviction that can be used in all those cases. Now prosecutors in those other cases can point to this New York conviction and say, see, he's already been found guilty of crime. Now Trump's credibility is destroyed. Now Trump's claims of innocence mean nothing because he's already been convicted. Here's what this really means. Trump dodged prison this time. Trump avoided the handcuffs and the cell this time. But Trump didn't escape the fundamental judgment. Trump didn't escape the label. Trump is a felon. Trump will always be a felon. Trump will go down in history as a convicted felon president. And that's the real dagger. That's what Merchan really did. Merchan said, I can't jail you because you're president-elect, but I can make sure the whole world knows you're a criminal. I can make sure your conviction is permanent. I can make sure history records that you're a felon. And prosecutors were right. Trump did attack the rule of law. Trump did try to undermine the legal system. Trump did attack the judge. Trump did attack the witnesses. Trump did attack the DA. And Merchan made sure that the record shows prosecutors were right about all of that. So Trump walks out of that hearing technically free. Trump won't go to jail. Trump won't pay a fine. Trump won't be on probation. But Trump walks out branded. Trump walks out with 34 felony convictions on his record. Trump walks out as a convicted felon, and that changes everything about Trump's presidency. Trump is not a normal president. Trump is not a president who can claim to be above the law. Trump is a president who has been found guilty of crime. Trump is a president with a criminal record. And voters understand this. Voters see a president with 34 felony convictions, and they understand that something is wrong. Voters see a president with felony counts for falsifying business records, and they understand that Trump was caught red-handed committing crimes. And this felon status follows Trump everywhere. Trump can't escape it. Trump can't claim innocence. Trump can't pretend this didn't happen. Trump is a convicted felon. That's who Trump is now. That's what the record shows. Now let's talk about what this means going forward, because the implications are enormous and far-reaching. The other cases are coming. The classified documents case, the January 6th case, the Georgia election case. All of those cases will use this New York conviction. All of those cases will use this felony record. All of those cases will say to juries, look, he's already been convicted of crime. He's already been found guilty. Why should you believe his denials now? And that's where prison comes in. That's where the real reckoning happens. That's where Trump actually goes to jail. Because once Trump leaves office, once Trump loses his presidential immunity, once Trump is just a private citizen again, judges will be free to impose real prison sentences. Judges will be free to impose the kind of punishment that this New York case called for but couldn't deliver. And Merchan essentially said that. Merchan said, the only reason I'm not jailing you is because you're president-elect. But if you weren't president-elect, if you didn't have these office protections, I would be putting you in prison. That's what the unconditional discharge means. That's what Merchan was saying to Trump. So Trump didn't win. Trump didn't escape. Trump just delayed the true reckoning. Trump just kicked the can down the road. Trump just bought some time before he has to face serious prison time from the other cases. And prosecutors made sure everyone understood that. Prosecutors made sure Merchan knew they thought Trump deserved prison. Prosecutors made sure the record shows they were pushing for real punishment. Prosecutors made sure that if other judges handle other cases, they'll know that experienced prosecutors thought Trump deserved jail time. And that matters. That affects how other judges will think about Trump's cases. That affects how other juries will evaluate Trump's defenses. That affects how seriously the legal system will take Trump's remaining criminal exposure. So Trump got branded a felon, but avoided prison this round. Trump got the worst of both worlds, but got a temporary reprieve. Trump got his conviction and his record, but got to keep his freedom for now. And that's the dagger. That's what Merchan did. That's what destroys Trump's narrative, because Trump can't claim he's innocent now. Trump can't say the system is rigged now. Trump can't pretend the charges were false now. Trump was convicted. Trump is a felon. Trump has 34 felony counts on his record. That's the legal reality. That's what the court found. And as Trump's presidency goes on, as the other criminal cases develop, as Trump faces more trials and more juries, this felony conviction will be there. This conviction will be on Trump's record. This conviction will follow Trump forever. And the dagger will cut deeper, because now when prosecutors in the Georgia case or the documents case or the January 6th case argue that Trump committed crimes, they can point to the New York conviction and say, see, he's already been found guilty of crime once. Now, when they argue Trump is a threat to the rule of law, they can point to this conviction and Merchan's statement about Trump attacking the legal system. And that changes everything. That means Trump's criminal exposure is not just from the current cases. Trump's criminal exposure is compounded by this felony record. Trump's criminal exposure is multiplied because now he's not defending against charges for the first time. Now he's defending against charges as someone who's already been convicted once. And once Trump leaves office, once Trump is just a private citizen, the judges in those other cases will be free to impose real prison time. The judges will be able to look at Trump's felony record and his pattern of criminal conduct and his attacks on the rule of law, and they'll be able to send Trump to prison. And that's what Merchan was really saying. That's what the unconditional discharge means. That's what the dagger is. Merchan said, I can't jail you now because of the office protections, but I'm marking you as a felon forever. And someday, when you lose the office, when you lose the protections, judges will be free to impose the prison sentence that this case called for. And that's the real reckoning coming. That's what Trump is facing. That's what Merchan's sentencing set in motion. Trump's felon status is permanent. Trump's criminal record is permanent. Trump's exposure to prison time is permanent. And the clock is ticking until Trump leaves office and judges are free to impose real punishment. And this is the final reality of Trump's legal situation. Trump is now a branded felon. Trump's conviction is permanent. Trump's record is permanent. And the dagger cuts both ways. It protects Trump from prison now because of the office, but it guarantees that prison is coming once Trump leaves office. And that's what terrifies Trump. That's what Trump is facing. That's what keeps Trump up at night. Trump knows he's a felon. Trump knows his conviction is permanent. Trump knows that when he leaves office, judges will be free to impose serious prison time. And prosecutors made sure everyone understands this. Prosecutors made sure everyone knows what they think Trump deserves. Prosecutors made sure the record is clear that Trump attacked the rule of law. Prosecutors made sure that future judges will know exactly what the legal system thinks of Trump's conduct. And voters need to understand this too. Voters need to understand that Trump is not a normal president. Voters need to understand that Trump has been found guilty of crime. Voters need to understand that Trump's presidency is unprecedented, not because of policy, but because of criminal conviction. And that conviction will define Trump's legacy. That conviction will follow Trump forever. That conviction will be the first thing historians write about Trump's presidency. Trump will not be remembered as a successful president. Trump will be remembered as the first convicted felon president. And that's what Merchan did. That's the dagger. That's the real punishment, not the jail time Trump avoided, but the felon status Trump now carries forever. And this is the point that matters. This is the moment that changes everything. Trump got convicted. Trump got branded a felon. And there's nothing Trump can do about it. Trump can't appeal away his felon status. Trump can't tweet away his criminal record. Trump can't spin his way out of being the first convicted felon president. And the other cases are coming. The documents case, the January 6th case, the Georgia case, all of them will reference this New York conviction. All of them will use this record against Trump. All of them will argue that Trump is a serial criminal, not just someone convicted once. And when Trump leaves office, when Trump is no longer protected by presidential immunity, when Trump is just a private citizen, that's when the real reckoning comes. That's when judges will be free to impose the prison sentences that Trump's crimes demand. That's when Trump could actually spend years in federal prison. And Merchan set that up. Merchan made sure the conviction was permanent. Merchan made sure the record was clear. Merchan made sure that when Trump loses the office protection, there will be a conviction sitting there waiting to pile on additional prison time from the other cases. And prosecutors understood this. Prosecutors weren't stupid about the unconditional discharge. Prosecutors understood that Merchan couldn't jail Trump while Trump was president-elect. But prosecutors also understood that this conviction creates a template. This conviction creates precedent. This conviction creates a record that other judges can use to impose serious prison time in other cases. So Trump's strategy of running out the clock, of staying president as long as possible to avoid prison, is now compromised. Trump is already a convicted felon. Trump's criminal record is already permanent. Trump's exposure to additional prison time is already locked in. Trump can't escape it by staying president. Trump can only delay it. And the delay won't last forever. Presidents leave office. Trump will eventually leave office. And when that happens, when Trump is no longer protected, when Trump is just a private citizen with a criminal record, that's when the full weight of the legal system can fall on Trump. That's when Trump could go to prison for years. That's when the real consequences of Trump's crimes will be imposed. And Merchan made sure everyone understands that. Merchan said Trump is guilty. Merchan said Trump committed crimes. Merchan said Trump attacked the rule of law. Merchan said Trump deserves serious punishment. The only reason Trump isn't going to prison is because Trump is president-elect, but that's temporary. That's not permanent. That's not forever. And that's the final message. That's what voters need to understand. Trump is guilty. Trump is a felon. Trump has a permanent criminal record. Trump is facing potential prison time. Trump is only free right now because of his office. And when Trump loses that office, when Trump is no longer president, Trump could go to prison. And that changes how voters think about Trump. That changes how voters evaluate Trump's presidency. That changes what voters think about Trump's future. Trump is not just a controversial president. Trump is a convicted criminal president. Trump is a president with a felony record. Trump is a president facing potential prison time. And that's the dagger that Merchan drove home. Not the lack of jail time Trump received, but the permanent felon status Trump now carries. Not the unconditional discharge that sounds lenient, but the conviction that will follow Trump forever and set the stage for serious prison time once Trump loses presidential protection. And this is where we are now. Trump walks out as a convicted felon. Trump walks out with 34 felony convictions on his record. Trump walks out branded by the court system as a criminal, and there's nothing Trump can do about it. Trump wanted to claim victory. Trump wanted to say the case was rigged. Trump wanted to say he was vindicated. But instead, Trump got convicted on all 34 counts. Trump got branded a felon. Trump got marked by history as a criminal president. And that conviction will follow Trump forever. That conviction will be mentioned in every news story about Trump going forward. That conviction will be the first thing historians write about Trump's presidency. That conviction will define Trump's legacy forever. And voters need to understand what this means. Voters need to understand that Trump is not a normal president. Voters need to understand that Trump has been convicted of crime. Voters need to understand that Trump's presidency is unprecedented because Trump is a convicted felon. And the question now is what happens next? What happens when Trump leaves office? What happens when Trump is no longer protected by presidential immunity? What happens when Trump is just a private citizen with a criminal record and judges are free to impose serious prison time? And Merchan essentially answered that question. Merchan said, I can't jail you now because you're president. But when you're not president, when you're just a regular person, the full weight of the law will fall on you. Merchan said, your conviction is permanent, your criminal record is permanent, and your exposure to prison time is permanent. And that's the dagger. That's what Merchan really did. That's what destroys Trump. Not the immediate jail sentence Trump avoided, but the permanent felon status Trump now carries and the promise of serious prison time once Trump loses presidential protection. And Trump knows this. Trump understands what this sentencing means. Trump understands that he's now a convicted felon. Trump understands that he's facing potential prison time. Trump understands that his presidency is defined by criminal conviction rather than policy achievement. And that's the final reality. Trump is a convicted felon. Trump will go down in history as the first convicted felon president. Trump is facing potential prison time once he leaves office, and there's nothing Trump can do to change any of that. And that's the story that matters right now. Trump didn't dodge conviction. Trump didn't dodge the felon label. Trump just dodged prison this round. But the conviction stands, the record stands, and when Trump leaves office, when Trump no longer has presidential protection, the full consequences of that conviction will fall on Trump. Merchan essentially told Trump, you're a convicted felon now. You'll always be a convicted felon. Your record is permanent. Your exposure to prison is permanent. The only reason you're not going to jail today is because of the office you hold. But that won't protect you forever. And that's the dagger. That's what really matters. That's what changes everything about Trump's presidency and Trump's future. Trump is now officially a convicted felon, and that conviction will follow Trump for the rest of his life. And this is the moment where Trump's legal world changed forever. Trump got convicted. Trump got branded a felon. Trump's record is permanent. Trump's exposure to prison is permanent, and Trump can't undo any of it. The only thing Trump got out of the unconditional discharge was a temporary reprieve from jail while president. But that reprieve is not permanent. That reprieve is not forever. That reprieve ends when Trump leaves office. And when that happens, when Trump is no longer president, when Trump is just a private citizen with a permanent felony record, the full consequences of Trump's criminal conviction will fall on him. Trump could face serious prison time. Trump could spend years in federal prison. Trump could lose his freedom because of the crimes Trump committed. And Merchan made sure everyone understands that's coming. Merchan made sure the record is clear. Merchan made sure Trump's conviction is permanent. Permanent means forever. That's the final reality. Trump is a convicted felon. Trump will always be a convicted felon. Trump is facing potential prison time. The question is no longer whether Trump is guilty. The question is no longer whether Trump committed crimes. The question is no longer whether Trump will be held accountable. The question now is when. When will Trump face the full consequences? When will Trump actually go to prison? How long will Trump be able to avoid the reckoning that's coming? And the answer is that Trump can avoid it as long as he's president. But presidents don't serve forever. And when Trump leaves office, that's when the real consequences begin. The judges in those other cases are watching. They're paying attention to what happened in New York. They're seeing how the legal system handled this unprecedented situation. They're understanding that Trump is a convicted felon who attacked the rule of law. And they're going to take that into account when they sentence Trump on the other cases. The cumulative weight of all of this is going to be crushing. The New York conviction is just the beginning. The documents case, the January 6th case, the Georgia case, all of them are still out there. All of them could result in serious prison time. And all of them will reference this New York conviction as evidence of Trump's pattern of criminal conduct. So Trump may have avoided prison today, but the dagger has been driven home. The conviction is permanent. The record is permanent, and the prison time is coming. It's just a matter of when. And that's the message that everyone needs to understand. Trump is a convicted felon. Trump will always be a convicted felon. And Trump is going to prison eventually. The only question is how long he can delay the inevitable. The only question is whether he can stay in office long enough to avoid the consequences. But the consequences are coming. The reckoning is coming. And nothing Trump does can stop it. That's the dagger that Mershon drove home. Not the unconditional discharge, not the lack of jail time, but the permanent conviction, the permanent felon status, the permanent criminal record, and the promise that someday, when Trump is no longer protected by the office, the full weight of the law will fall on him. And that's the reality that Trump is facing. That's the reality that Trump can't escape. That's the reality that will define Trump's legacy forever. Trump is a convicted felon. Trump will always be a convicted felon. And Trump is going to prison.